everybody. So I did have different plans for my first official video, but with the baby, things kind of change. So I'm just gonna start off by going through kind of my hospital experience. So I did have a little boy, and I actually had him a week late. And my hospital experience, I'm telling you this from my point of view, and I know that everybody has a different experience when having a child, so it's different for each person. So don't take my story as, oh my gosh, that's going to happen to me, or that's definitely not what happened to me if you do have a child. So for me, I went into the hospital at 7 o'clock in the morning on October 23rd. And it started off, I was really nervous. I think my biggest fear, just from everybody telling me, was getting an epidural. I don't know why. I think I was just listening to everybody's stories saying that's the worst part of labor, that's the scariest part. And I'm telling you, that was the easiest part of my labor, was getting the epidural. I was really nervous. I was crying. I was scared. It was my first child. And then after I got the epidural, I don't remember what time that was. I want to say like noon I got the epidural, because they had to break my water and start inducing me because I was a week late. And the epidural was fine, but for me, the epidural didn't work correctly, and so I could feel everything from the waist down. Except one of my legs was numb, but the other one I still had full feeling in. I wasn't completely numb, and the epidural didn't work like it was supposed to work. So my advice for those who don't have a kid is to make sure you voice that to your nurse, that you still feel everything, you're still feeling pain. And that's what I did, but I kind of had a bad nurse in the beginning. And I think for my first child, you were just kind of like, I was just kind of scared to say, can I have a new nurse, please? But if you haven't had a kid, I'm telling you, request a new nurse if you aren't happy with the nurse that you're with, or she's just not understanding you. Because my nurse just kept saying, oh, well, that's pressure you're feeling, it's not pain. And trust me, it was pain. I could feel everything. And he actually got stuck on my hip bone. So it was just like someone was punching my side over and over again. So I had a rough 11, 12 hours of labor with him. So I came in when I got my epidural. Then I told her that after a while I was still in so much pain. So they sent back in the anesthesiologist, and he checked, and he was like, well, everything's fine, I can give you more medicine. And they did. And I'm not going to go in too much detail about my bad nurse experience, but I'm just telling those who haven't had kids, if you don't like your nurse, please request a new one. And I know that for my next child, I definitely will make sure the nurse that I have is one that understands me and one that acknowledges when I'm in pain. My nurse was like, oh, this is going to be the worst pain of your entire life, yet she was 30 and hadn't had kids yet, so she did not know what pain I was going to be in. And to tell somebody that, I know having a child's painful, but to tell someone who's never had a kid before, this is going to be the worst experience of your entire life, like you're going to be in so much pain, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear that. I just don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on getting my baby here, him being healthy, him being okay, me being okay. So just for future reference, if you haven't had a kid, request a new nurse if you aren't happy with your nurse. And also, so when I was going through all this pain, I was just, I'm telling you, you get like hot flashes, and then you're freezing. Like I was sweating, and then I was like shaking profusely. Like I couldn't stop. Like my mouth was chattering. And my husband and mom were in there with me. Actually, I had a unique thing. I had a lot of people in the room with me. I didn't really care. I'm not one who's like discreet. I'm fine whoever wanted to be in the room. So I like my mother-in-law, 2 of my aunts were in there, my mom and my husband. And I was fine with that. Whoever wanted to see my baby being born and wanted to share that experience with me, it's fine with me. But my husband and mom who were right there with me. And so when I was starting to have to push, it was I was in a lot of pain because, again, I could feel everything because my epidural didn't work correctly. So I basically had a natural birth with the pain that I was feeling. According to my doctor, it was since epidural didn't work. And for future reference, if your epidural isn't working, if your nurse isn't understanding what you're trying to say, call in a different nurse and tell them something's not right. I can still feel everything. Literally only one of my legs was numb. That was it. And above was numb. But from my waist down, I could feel everything. So then when I started to push, I was in so much pain, and you just kind of almost black out. So you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, I just have to get through this pain. And I was pushing and pushing, and you just you don't hear anybody. So I remember they did a shift change in the middle of me pushing, which I was annoyed in the process, but I'm so grateful because after the awful nurse I had in the beginning, the rest of the nurses were amazing. And I remember one of the nurses was like, do you want me to count to 10 while you're pushing? Because you're supposed to push for like 10 seconds and then stop and breathe. And you push during each contraction. And I was like, no, I'm fine. And I was pushing, and I was getting so frustrated because I didn't know how long I had to push. So then I was like, count again, count, I need you to count. So I'd push while she was counting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I'm going to pass out. I'm not going to make it. I had ice packs all over me. And they were like, you can push. My doctor ran in, checked me, and then left. Because she was like, oh, he's not there yet. In his head, like you could see his head. And I remember like, oh my gosh, where is she going? I was yelling. I was like, where is she going? She needs to come back in here. And they're like, well, you need to make her come back in here. So I was pushing. And I kid you not, the worst thing you can hear when you're in so much pain as you're pushing is the nurse tell you need to stop pushing or he's going to come out and the doctor isn't in here. And I was like, she needs to come in here. And right when my doctor ran in the room, they told me to push, and he came out, and oh my gosh, I think I blacked out. I was just in so much pain, and I was like, oh, when you have him, all I was worried about, I was like, is he okay? And I heard him cry, and I had my eyes closed just because there was just so many people in there. And I did hemorrhage, so it was just a big, I think like 10 people came rushing in the room because I was bleeding so bad. And the room that I was in, I guess, wasn't used often, which the first nurse that I wasn't very fond of said, oh, well, we don't have a lot of the stuff in here because this room isn't used often, so that's why I have to keep going and grabbing stuff, which didn't kind of make me feel good, not having a kid before and going through that process. But I did have a hard delivery, and I had a hard recovery. So one of my next videos is I'm going to kind of go over hospital essentials, or kind of what helped me in the hospital. And I'm telling you from my experience, I thought going into it, I was like, I'm going to have him in a cute outfit. I'm going to take pictures. I even brought my makeup. I was like, I'm going to do my makeup. I'm going to have everything perfect and remember this experience. And I'm telling you, I don't even think I changed out of the hospital nightgown until the day I left, because you're so like, it's hard on your body. And for me, having such a hard delivery, I could barely move after. And having a first baby, I just did not even want to change him out of the outfit he was in, because it was just so convenient. I had a little sleep sack that the hospital provided, and I had him in it, and it just made my life 10 times easier, because I just couldn't change him. Like, even changing him to leave the hospital, I was nervous to change him. I didn't want to change him out of his sleep sack. I liked it. It was easy. He was just so fragile to me. Even though he was 8 pounds, like, to me, he was just a fragile little baby. And I was scared, as a first-time mom, and I've babysat and I've taken care of kids. But as a first-time mom, you're like, I don't want to break him. Like, I'm just so nervous. And I'm telling you, that was one of the hardest days of my life, but also one of the best and rewarding days of my life. And in that moment after I had him, I remember telling everybody, I'm never having a kid again. That was the worst pain in my entire life. And it's not even 4 months ago, and I can already tell you, I don't remember the severity of my pain, and I do want to have another kid. So if you haven't had a kid yet, or you're about to have a kid, know that the pain is temporary. And even though you think, I'm never going to forget this pain, it's the worst pain in my entire life, you will, because you see their little face and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to bring another life into this world. But overall for me, it was a hard experience, and I hope that my next having my next baby isn't as severe and hard, and my epidural works correctly if I do have a vaginal delivery. But it's so different for everybody, and it's so hard not to listen to everybody's opinions, because I remember my mom was like, it's gonna be easy, I only pushed for 5 hours. And then some other people were like, oh my gosh, it was so hard. Some people were like, it's fine, you're gonna be fine. The epidural was the worst part. Someone told me that the glucose drink for the sugar test when you're pregnant, that was the worst part, and I thought it tastes good, so that wasn't right for me. And it's just different for every single person. But just sharing my experience to know if someone did have the same experience as I did, that you're not alone. I am 3.5 months out and I'm still recovering. I have to go to physical therapy. It's just, I'm still in pain. When I sit, I'm in pain. I was in a lot of pain. I think it just stopped hurting sitting like maybe 3 weeks ago. So it takes a long time for your body to recover. So it's hard, you know, and you're a new time mom and it's so hard to get out. I tell people think it's so easy to be at home with a baby, and I may make it look easy, but I'm telling you, like, some days I can't even brush my teeth until my husband comes home. And I know people are like, oh, that's stupid. You can lay him down and make him cry, and that's fine for you, and that's what you want to do, but I don't want to make him cry. It literally breaks my heart, because you know all the pain you went through, and you carried him I carried him in my stomach for 9 months. He's my precious baby, and I don't want him to cry. I just want to be with him every second of every day, and that's my choice. So everybody's going to tell you opinions on how to take care of your baby, what to do for your baby, and I've learned I'm not going to get mad at people that want to tell me their opinions. I'm going to take them, I'm going to hear them, but in the end, me and my husband, we're going to do what we want to do. And if you're a new time mom, or going to be a mom, or already have kids, you do what you want to do. If you want to let your kids cry till they fall asleep, do what you want to do. If you don't, then don't. If you want to keep your kids in their pajamas all day, keep them in their pajamas all day. If you want to dress them in different clothes every day, do that. If you want to stay at home instead of taking them out, then do that. Do whatever makes you happy, because in the end, if you're happy, then your baby's happy, and it makes you feel better. You know, if I'm by myself, I don't want to go out. I like, if my husband's here, my mom's here, I'll take him out. But for me, it's just so hard to take him out by myself. I would rather just spend the day being at home with him. So if you're going to be a mom, you know, share your experience so that people know they're not alone if they have a similar experience. And I hope that this video helps you prepare for a child, prepare for what it could be in the hospital. And if you have an easier delivery than I did, then you have nothing to worry about. And if you don't, just let me tell you, it's all worth it in the end, and you're gonna love every second of being a parent. So thank you so much for watching at home with me, and stay tuned for the next video to come. Bye.